Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it's time for some PathOfExile discussion. I wanted to put together this video as an introduction to the Heist currencies because I've had a number of questions about them on stream in recent days. People who aren't sure how primary grade lenses, secondary regrade lenses, tailoring orbs and tempering orbs work, or even that they existed at all. So let's go through what those currencies do and why they're as expensive as they are. So firstly, we have the tempering orb. This applies an enchantment to a weapon. This is something that is in hot demand among mirror tier crafters. Once someone's got an item that they feel is close to being mirror tier, one thing they'll often do is attempt to apply a tempering orb in order to get a synergistic enchant with it. Now, these tempering orbs become very expensive because they are the rarest component at this point of the craft, and as a result, they get more and more expensive as there are more and more candidates for mirror tier service throughout the league. They're actually pretty cheap this league. Sometimes by a month in, they can hit as much as 2500 chaos. This league, they're only in the 500 chaos range. Only. Tailoring Orbs are next. These are the same thing except they are on body armor. The reason that the body armor ones are cheaper is partly because they tend to provide less of a power boost to characters, and secondly because it's easier to roll what you want with them. That means that the very wealthiest players don't want as many of them as Tempering Orbs, where there's something like 160 different outcomes. There's only about 80 of them on Tailoring Orbs. For regrade lenses, what these do is they change quality types. They do the same thing. Secondary regrade lenses are exclusively usable on support gems, and primary regrade lenses are exclusively usable on skill gems. If you apply one to a superior gem, it will then become divergent, anomalous, or phantasmal, and if you apply it to a gem that is already an alternate quality, it will become any of the possible qualities, so superior re-enters the pool at that point. If you've got a divergent wave of conviction and you apply a primary grade lens to it, it could go phantasmal, it could go anomalous, but it could also go back to superior. It won't go back to what it currently is. And that's something that's important when it comes to how to use these, because not all outcomes have equal rarity. We're going to be looking at the website POE a bit here, and I'm going to put links down in the video description below so that you can find the specific pages. Let's start with the list of all of the weapon enchantments. There's 181 of them, and it is my belief, although this is definitely not proven, that all of these except for one are equal in rarity. And the one that I think is rarer is can have one additional crafted modifier. That mod is incredibly powerful for high-end crafting, not because you want it on the final product. Normally you're going to want to craft other mods around it and then have at most one crafted mod on your item. The way it's used is that people use that in order to make meta mods more powerful, and then at the end they then apply another tempering orb in order to get something else in its place. Otherwise, there's a whole bunch of different outcomes here. One thing that's important to note is that tempering orbs can scramble sockets on an item, so do keep that one in mind. There's a number of things here that will nerf the sockets on an item. For example, all sockets are red, attribute modifiers have 10% increased effect. This essentially renders the item worthless in most cases. You're generally not going to be able to use it. Or -3 to maximum sockets, ailment modifiers have 15% increased effect. Maybe this is desirable on your specific item, but when you get it, it's going to break all of your links on the item. Next, link down in the description below to the same list for all of the armor enchants. Again, can have one additional crafted modifier, is available at high item level. That's a minimum item level of 80. And there's a number of different mods that do all sorts of different things. Most of them, though, will add either 6% to two different categories of mods, or they'll add 8% to one, or they'll add 10% to one with a drawback, or they'll add 12 or 15% to one with a massive drawback. Finally, I'm going to put a link down in the description below to POE's listing for various gems. Now I'm going to use Wave of Conviction and Determination as examples, but if you're looking for something else, you can simply just go into the search bar and you'll be able to have a look at that. However, you'll notice here that there's a listing of weightings. Now this is the frequency with which these particular things appear. This both applies to the cases themselves at the end of a Grand Heist, but it also applies to when you use a regrade lens on a gem. So for example, if you were to get a Wave of Conviction with a random quality type on it, there would be 50 chances for it to be superior, 100 to be anomalous, 100 to be divergent, 20 to be phantasmal. Out of a total of 270, that means you'd have 5 in 27 to be superior, 10 in 27 to be anomalous or divergent, 2 in 27 to be phantasmal. But normally, sources of gems don't work that way. If it's a Heist curio, superior gems won't be an option. Alternately, if you're applying a regrade lens to an existing Wave of Conviction, you'll never get the same thing back. And so this means that if you start with an anomalous or divergent one, you can actually rig the odds a bit in your favor of getting a particular desired outcome. If you start with an anomalous gem, then there are 50 chances to get a superior gem, no chances to get anomalous, 100 to get divergent, 20 to get phantasmal. This is a 2 in 17 chance to get phantasmal, about 12%. and that's the highest you're going to get. In this case, it's not really worth it. The Phantasmal Wave of Conviction, whilst it's quite good, it's very narrow in its niche, and most people don't want it. As a result, there's plenty of them available for trade, and you can pick them up that way easier than you can try and make one with a regrade lens, regrade lenses being pretty rare. But we also have Determination as something you might want to consider. With Determination, if you apply a regrade lens to a superior gem, you have a 100 in 110 chance, or about 91%, to get an anomalous outcome. You have a 10 in 110, or about 9%, to get a divergent gem. On the flip side, if you were to apply it to an anomalous starting gem, then you'll wind up with a 5 in 6 chance, 50 in 60, to get superior, and 10 in 60, or 1 in 6, to get divergent. Notice that the odds are rigged somewhat more in your favour here. They're still not very good, but ultimately this ends up being the cheapest way to get yourself a divergent determination in the current trade league. Now that's only true at the time I'm recording this video, because as soon as I make this video public, it's probably going to cause anomalous determination to go up a little bit in price. That's its primary use case. It's not that people actually want to use it as a gem, it's that they want to use it as fuel to try and get themselves a divergent gem. Because divergent determination is extremely, extremely, extremely strong, and lots of people want it. That's actually one of the best uses at the time I'm recording this video for primary grade lenses, although the market will change. So how would I recommend using these if you're in solo self-found? If you're in solo self-found, there's probably a single alternate quality that will help your build the most. Use your very scarce regrade lenses to chase that. You won't get many of them, so don't worry if you don't get it, but if you do get it, bonus. You should assess this separately, both for skill gems and for support gems, and use your rare regrading lenses accordingly. If you're in Trade League, you probably want to sell these unless you know exactly what you're doing with them. The reason for this is that it does tend to be a pretty lucrative thing if you use them on exactly the right choice of item, but you'll need to do a lot of research for that. And by the time you've invested a lot of time researching what is the perfect use for it, the market may have shifted, or alternately, you might have just spent an hour doing that research. And sure, you make 100 chaos out of it, but you could have made a lot more if you were to go and farm. Alternatively though, there is a definite niche in the game for a small number of traders to buy up gems that aren't desirable for their own stats, like Anomalous Determination, and then buy up regrade lenses and use them on them in bulk, and then level and quality those gems, and turn around and sell them to other players that want to just use them and don't want to think about the best way to get them, but are willing to pay a premium for someone else to do that for them. Anyways, that's the Heist currencies. May your Tailoring Orbs have interesting results.